We all have a story, and at times we feel we're walking it out alone. Let's pause and think. Join us for honest conversations about adoption and parenting as we lament, encourage, give hope, and explore our true identity and worth in Christ. Hi, and welcome to Pause and Think. It's a podcast that we're just having real and honest conversations regarding adoption and foster care. And so my name is Jackie Darby, and today I have a special guest from Raleigh, North Carolina. Her name is Kristen Thomas. So welcome, Kristen.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, Jackie. I love being here.
Well, I just want to tell our listeners today how we met.
Yeah.
I was invited to CAFO. CAFO is Christian Alliance for Orphans, a big gathering in the United States. I went for the very first time to a CAFO summit, and that was in Atlanta, Georgia. And that is where we met,
That's
Kristen.
right.
And it was in a workshop, Voices for Adult Adoptees
Mm-hmm.
or for foster kids that
Yeah.
were all adults now. So, out of curiosity, I wanted to attend that workshop. And that's where I met you. And I can tell you, I want to let the listeners know
Yeah.
I was so blown away and impacted um, by this workshop. I went away very overwhelmed, not as much regarding the subject of adoption, but God opened my eyes. I was like, where has my head been? I think in the sand about foster care.
Right.
So I don't want to take time because I want you to share your story.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
let's hear your story, Kristen.
Absolutely. But I want to say first, I just was so blown away by the people that came to this workshop. You know, your warmth, your curiosity was such a just sense of kindness to our souls that
Mhm.
allows us to be seen. And I think that's like kind of the theme of my own story is just this absence of being seen, and didn't even realize how much
Mhm.
impactful it would be at an adult age, and having someone who was an adoptee come and just hear and share their wisdom and where God has got them. And so thank you so much for that kindness and intentionality that day, because it just meant so much. um, but yeah,
Mhm.
I was born, I like to say, to two people that loved me dearly, but their hands were so full of things that were broken and hard, and made it to where they just couldn't parent the way they wanted. It allowed for brokenness and neglect and abuse, drugs, and a lot of hard things that I don't think they would ever have said would be their story, right? And
Mhm.
that led me to a lot of moments of being alone, being in pain, being trying to navigate a really scary world with scary things at home and scary things at school. And I kind of grew up believing that my worth was in kind of who I showed the world that I was. And so I tried to be good. I tried to be a friend to everyone. I tried to be kind. I tried to belong, right? But
Mhm.
it just never really
Mhm.
felt fully like home anywhere for a really long time. I ended up in kinship care and then in foster care. And then I did indeed age out. And being homeless at 18, 19 years old was a cruelty and allowed for some vulnerabilities, right? And things to happen that I wish hadn't. But where I am today as a clinician and as a mom, like, I look back on those seasons and I'm just repeatedly brokenhearted for all of the foster youth that have to navigate a system that's just really not meant for their success. And so thank you so much for just seeing that and holding space, Jackie. I really appreciate it.
Well, Kristen, when I sat and listened,
Mm,
not just to you, but there were others in the room.
yeah.
And, even today, it really does bring tears to my eyes because,
Yeah.
I sat and listened to, thought about my story and thought about, all the things I was kind of feeling sorry for myself about. But to hear a story like yours that you were in a system, a foster care system for so long and never got adopted officially, I was blown away. I was blown away. And we might have some listeners, Kristen, that might not understand, like when you said
Mm,
kinship, you were
okay.
in a kinship like
Yeah.
situation. Can you just expound a little bit, maybe for somebody who might not totally understand?
Sure. Yeah. I spent time with some biological family, several different ones. And then I ended up actually being with a youth pastor and his wife for a little bit
Mm.
until I officially entered foster care. So,
Oh, wow. And so the church was involved. And how old were you when you were in that kinship care,
I think the
approximately?
first time was 13, 14 and for a short
Okay.
season. And I know
Such
my
a
mom,
vulnerable life.
yeah, yeah. I know my mom tried really hard to find ways to still parent, and it just wasn't possible. So, kind of went back and
Mhm.
forth for quite a bit before it was obvious that just for my own mental health and hers, we needed for me to go in something more permanent. Um,
And then when you entered the whole foster care system,
hmm
you said you were in, more than one home,
Yeah,
from what I'm hearing. And so even that instability
yeah,
has to affect the emotions
hmm
and just be so traumatic for kids, youth like you. So
sure,
is there
yeah.
anything you would like to share to
hmm
parents or people who are navigating this whole foster care system? Any wisdom you'd like to share?
Sure, yeah. I say this often that foster care is kind of like a job interview, right?
Mm,
Especially when you are somebody that has their parental rights terminated, so you are adoptable. They kind of felt like a job interview where I never got the job, right? And
mm,
those moments they break your heart in ways that are just,
mm,
absolutely shattering. And when you come from abuse and neglect, and there's seasons where the church kind of did kind of look the other way a little bit, and
mm,
then you're kind of thrown into a situation where people are now starting to really understand the dynamics of abuse and neglect, then you kind of feel more like a project than someone who
mm,
belongs, right? And so I think for a long time, the church and I's relationship was I wanted to come in as perfect or as helpful or as me as possible so that you didn't see my brokenness so that I could belong versus just try to um, maybe be a project, right? And I was actually sitting with my pastor recently, and he was like, "You know what, Kristen?" He was like, "We're actually all projects, right? And the Lord is so gracious to put people around us to pour into us." And so, through this whole journey, for those that are in the foster care system or in tough spaces, like that vulnerability does increase opportunity for people to come around us. And we're not always in control of those people that come around us, right? Like there are more and more trauma informed spaces that we're finding ourselves into, which is beautiful. And I think conversations just need to keep happening on how to increase that, to help people feel more like they belong and that they're healing in ways that are authentic to them and not just that they can, be successful at the job interview, if that makes sense.
mm. Yes,
Um,
that's so good. And I see the church much like a hospital,
yeah.
and instead of being projects, we're patients.
Mm,
And we're looking to be healed. We want to be healed. But
sure.
because of our brokenness, our perspectives have been, off.
Mm,
And
sure.
there's times we, the church, because now we are part of the church, a healthy part of the church,
Mm,
um, we sometimes the church doesn't maybe understand how to
right.
fully embrace or go there because maybe it's uncomfortable. And like you said,
Mhm.
because there is trauma involved in, especially in a story
Right.
like yours, there's so much trauma. And if the church isn't equipped to handle the trauma, whether it's through trauma-based counseling,
Mhm.
or just to have people on staff or people with, youth leaders dealing
Right.
with youth. like how you
Right.
and I maybe were, it makes it very
Right.
challenging on both sides.
Yeah.
And we want to belong and we don't want to be rejected
Right.
again.
Yeah. Yeah.
We don't
It's
want to
so
be
true.
rejected again. And so we're
It's so
trying to
true.
put this like facade on, right?
Mhm.
Um, like we're perfect
Right.
and nobody's perfect. Nobody's
Right.
perfect.
That's
So
right.
as being part of the church now, what what would you like to say to church leaders?
Mm.
Um, what could you
Yeah.
say to church leaders regarding embracing
Right.
vulnerable kids?
Yeah, a lot, but we'll start with the beauty of just normalcy, of realizing that, you know, as someone, if you took away 80% of your memories with families, like who would you be? What would make up who you are, right? And if they could
Mhm.
grasp that, they would realize that a lot of the things that make us who we are those little tiny moments that a lot of these foster
Mm,
youth and children have missed out on, and it can be messy sometimes, right? There can be an hospital kind of sense of love that's required. And sometimes it just looks like putting a lot of safe people around these youth, not just one or two, right? Because they'll burn out, but a whole community of people that have talents and giftings that could reflect more of the early church where we all came together and we were collective, and also allowing the youth to make impacts on other people, right? Inviting them in to a place of not just being served, but being able to go side by side, right? So, sense of
yeah.
normalcy and yeah, a sense of belonging that goes deeper than just being healed, but being part of family.
So what I'm hearing from you is church community is really important.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You mentioned you're a youth pastor. My youth pastor, he didn't know my story when I first met
Mm,
them, he and his wife, but I can tell
yeah.
you, if it wasn't for them and how they
Mm,
embraced me, I know I would not be sitting here today.
wow.
They
Wow.
truly embraced me. They opened up their home.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
invited me in. They, like you said, they gave me a place to, they didn't even know because I was still trying to look and act perfect,
Right.
but
Right.
they asked me to be a youth leader.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I know, that's crazy. And even though I don't feel like I was qualified, but they asked me to be a youth leader. And so
Mm,
I think that is something important. You know, you see something in those kids
right.
and you pull
Yeah.
out the good.
Come
You pull
on.
out the good.
Exactly right.
You
Yep.
pull out the good, you accept them where they're at, and that's what my
Mhm.
youth pastor did, thank the Lord. But I realize not all youth pastors are that way.
Right.
So, like you said,
Yeah.
I just wanna put out a challenge to any youth
Mhm.
pastor who might be listening. You
Right.
know, here we are, women now, but how the youth pastors can make such a huge impact
They can.
on the
Yeah.
lives of vulnerable teenagers.
Absolutely. And it's really funny because, I was actually going to the youth group, and there was this kind of a joke where like Kristen just never leaves. She just stays all the time. And I can't remember if I had run away or something, but I was actually living in my car and just pretending to like live this normal life, right?
Mm.
And I remember very distinctly, they asked me, they're like, "Are you living in your car? Like, are you homeless?" And they were like, "Oh, no, 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 like that's not gonna happen." And so like, that's actually how I got put with one of them, was just literally just never leaving church, wanting to be around community so much,
Mm.
but then also showing up with this complete fake facade of like everything's fine. Like I just want to be here. I'm just happy to like be able to praise Jesus, learn more, and be around other Christians while there's this giant wound that I'm like holding on to and needing support in. And so for them to see me and then to step up and not to judge me and not like, it truly wasn't, "Hey, how can we fix Kristen?" It was really, "How can we come alongside of the good things that she is already doing and calling out that gold that you're talking about," which is so powerful. It was really
Wow,
cool.
that's amazing. So I know some of your story.
Mhm.
and you have definitely been given a lot of lemons. But as we've heard the saying goes, you take those lemons and you make lemonade, and you are one person who I know has done that. And so
Good.
our listeners might not know you.
Mm.
They might be seeing you for the first time.
Sure.
So,
Uh,
can you share how you have made lemonade, a
mm,
really great glass of lemonade out of a lot of lemons that you've been handed? And I'm
aw,
not saying that
yeah,
you know, you've arrived, you have this
right.
perfect life now,
Right, yeah.
but we're all in process.
Right.
But share with our
Mm.
audience how you have made some glasses of lemonade.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I think from really early on, I just recognized that there was such a power and beauty and in gratitude, and not to like toxic positivity or spiritually bypass pain, but just finding moments of joy, right? And finding the little moments that I think I just held on to and I focused on and I was grateful for, and then
Mm,
realizing that there's always somebody around you that is also hurting. There's also people
mm,
that want to feel like they belong. And so just really focusing more outward and external really gave me a lot of the beautiful memories that I feel like turned into lemonade, later on. And I don't think it was intentional, right? Like there was just a lot of things that I got to see, and I had my eyes open from a very early age of what could be possible or what people
mhm,
could be going through, and so it gave me more compassion for people. And through that, unfortunately, I've lost two parents to suicide, and through that I've
mm,
gotten to join some incredible organizations that give back and support other people. And just like with foster youth, when you're in a group of people who understand, you don't have to use as much words to really know someone and to support someone. And so I think some of the best lemonade, I think, is just being allowed God to soften, keep my heart soft, and allow me to see others in the ways that I wanted to be seen.
oh, that's so good. And for those who might not have a relationship with the
Mm,
Lord, for those who might not be part of a church family or understand our faith,
right.
what encouraging words would you have to somebody who might be
Mm,
far removed from the church or might
sure.
have had a
Yeah.
really bad situation with the church? What can you encourage them,
Oh gosh.
or how
Well,
can you encourage them?
and I know people say this all the time, and it's so infuriating, but it's so true. Like, there truly is no perfect church. There's no perfect group of people. And even my own therapist said one time, like, every church may not serve you in every season. And there might be seasons
Mm,
where you need to go find something more lighthearted, something more deeper, something more relational, right? And not being
mhm.
afraid to we don't want to run from accountability and from discipleship, but running towards the things that God's called you to. And if church hurt or frustration has been part of that, then being open and honest with people who will listen, so it doesn't create these arrows in our soul, right? We can pull those out and we can stop the bleeding, and we can go be around people who really do want to get to know us and walk in the way that the Lord's called us to. So,
Yes, that's so true because we can get better or we can get bitter. And I don't
sure,
wanna
it's an
be this
invitation.
bitter. Yes, I don't wanna
Yeah,
be we don't wanna be these bitter women.
yeah,
We want to be better, and
yeah,
so you do have to, you know,
right.
heal from that,
Mm-hmm.
and that's just such, a lie of the enemy. He wants us far
Yeah,
removed from the
yes.
church, from community. He
Mm-hmm.
wants us to be alone and think we're the only ones going through our
Yeah,
situation,
so true.
but we need community, we need the
Yeah.
church, we need the Lord in our lives. I know
Mhm.
that's why I'm able to sit here today
Come
because
on.
of what he's done in my life and because of the community through the church that he's brought into my life and people like who attend CAFO.
Yeah,
And again,
yeah.
I got opened my eyes to this whole
Mm,
area of foster care, and not just foster care as children,
right.
but foster care of young women like you who aged out. And that broke my heart. It
Mm,
broke my heart in so many ways, and that is why I wanted to have you on,
sure.
because I want others to understand this area.
Mhm.
I don't want them to be in the dark like how I felt like I was,
Sure.
um, to hear stories like yours. And
Mm,
so what encouraging word would you have for other youth,
mhm.
um, who are maybe
Yeah.
aged out of foster care? What kind of hope can you give them? Um,
Mm, yeah,
might be walking this journey and
sure.
aren't in the same area of process like we are.
Sure. I think every new season is a new opportunity. I don't care how bad the last season was. There truly are new mercies available and new opportunities. If you walk with me in my day to day life, you know that my life can be kind of crazy and a lot of twists and turns, and some of them really hard. And there are questions that we have for the Lord respectfully, but at the same time, sometimes things can change so rapidly that you really don't know how your life is going to play out. There's so many new possibilities to each day. And I think that if we get stuck in the way things have always been or the way things have gone for us, then we might miss out on the beauty that's ahead of us. And sometimes it can feel really overwhelming and heavy to feel that hope. And so it's really important that we hold that hope for each other and we're honest about the things that we struggle with and the things that we hope for, because we're worthy of being celebrated and held space for in both. So,
Thank you. Thanks for your honesty.
yeah, absolutely.
Well, I just want to let the listeners know that there's just so much that you have to share. And one of the amazing things that you didn't share, but now you are a counselor, you have your
Hmm.
own practice. And not only have you reached that goal in your life, which I so admire, but you have went on to adopt. And so
Yeah.
there's so much to share, but I want the listeners to
Sure.
know to join us next time in the next
Mm,
episode, uh, because I want you to hear Kristen's story regarding adoption and her daughter.
yeah,
And so join us next time. Thank you so much for joining us
absolutely.
on our
It's a wild
podcast.
one. So, yeah,
Yes.
join
And
us.
thank you to the listeners for
Hmm.
joining us, listening to Kristen's story. And join us next time on Pause and Think for another episode to hear about this incredible adoption story. Thanks for joining us for this episode of Pause and Think. For more resources and information, go to whosami.org.